I was lucky enough to get my hands on Assassin's Creed Origins pretty early. I've been playing it a ton, and I have a lot to say about it. Probably because I'm a really big fan of the series. I know that comes with like some, because a lot of people aren't really as into the newer games, but I've played them all. I've kind of really loved them all, even the ones that weren't so hot. It's really like my guilty pleasure game. It's my comfort food. I know what I'm getting. It's usually just an addictive grind. I like to see what happens with the Order of the Assassins. So I guess you should take my opinion as that of a fan who's kind of stuck with the series. I will say Assassin's Creed Origins right off the bat. I think it will please most fans who've stuck with the series. I don't think it's going to win any new people over, and I think the people that are off the Assassin's Creed bandwagon, if you're hating on the game, Origins isn't going to win you back. I'll be completely honest with that. I'm not going to bullshit you, but I do really like the game. I think it has some fundamental flaws, like every Assassin's Creed game, but there's a lot of good stuff there, and I think it's worth experiencing if you love games. So right off the bat, it starts out, you're Bayek, you're this pretty cool guy. Honestly, I'm a big fan of him. I'm very picky with the Assassin's Creed protagonists because it seems like they've never really got it right after Ezio. Like, they just tried to replicate that. Here, you have a guy who, he's very charismatic, but he's not overly cool like Ezio. He can also be serious and grimdark, and he's a ruthless killer, but he's not super stoic and boring. It's a really good happy medium. I think he's an interesting enough character because he has a good balance. He's just generally likable. He's a cool dude trying to mostly do the right thing. He has issues with rage, and the story goes in some interesting places, but I like what they have going with him. I also like the fact that he has like an established wife that is Aya, who is actually a very important character to the story. She's also right at his side a lot of the time, and there's a very interesting dynamic here, a character dynamic between the two that's refreshing. They are a couple, they have a relationship, but they also have assassin-related goals, and it just worked for me. It's kind of a similar dynamic to the brother-sister thing, like Jacob and Evie Fry from Syndicate, but it's very interesting just because you don't really see that type of thing in a game. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm getting married Saturday the 28th, which is probably like right now. I can't stop working, but I just really like seeing a badass character with a cool wife right now. That works for me. But jumping off of that with the characters, I think the first thing you're gonna notice here is that they played The Witcher 3 a lot, because the game has plenty of side quests. It's way more structured like an RPG now, with main quests and side quests that you can track at any time from the menu. And the side quests do things. They actually try. They're not cookie cutter, repetitious side quests. They do eventually, some of the stuff is the same, but really, you're talking to interesting characters. There's well-written dialogue. Some of these little mini stories are very interesting, and the quests are multi-layered. You're doing multiple things. You're killing people, sure. You're also investigating murders, looking for clues. You're helping people, like you're helping a farmer carry his stuff. You're delivering a boat to someone. You're saving someone from an alligator attack. It really does manage to stay kind of interesting and compelling and really push you for those side quests. Now, there's way more side quests with some meat on them, and there's less of a cluttered map. People complain about just the Ubisoft games in general having maps filled with filler bullshit to keep you busy, and this definitely does have that, but it's not so much. It's way more focused. But on the flip side, you do have bases essentially that are open-ended where you can tackle them whichever way you want and basically take out a base of dudes and get some loot. That's been a thing in Assassin's Creed games with towers and everything like that, but here it feels distinctly Far Cry. Maybe it's the fact that you fly around as your bird and you scout out enemies. Maybe that's it. It just feels way more Far Cry than Assassin's Creed, and it kind of bothered me. The gameplay is good. One thing I'm really disappointed with is the stealth still leaves a lot to be desired. I really like the old crowd-based stealth that Assassin's Creed had. I think that's a very distinct part of the series, and now it's not here, and I miss it. Now you're just creeping around in bushes and whistling. A dude comes over to the bush, and you stab him. I played Assassin's Creed Black Flag for 100 hours, and it feels just like that, and I'm really bored of it. They do give you some tools, like they still give you the berserk darts and the sleep darts, but I don't think it's enough. The stealth for me was really disappointing here. It feels better, it controls better than it has before, and that's good, but it's still just too simple. And that's pretty much the game as a whole. It's very streamlined and very easy now. You automatically run. The free running and free climbing finally works perfectly. You don't really fuck up and accidentally climb on things you weren't supposed to. But the combat is where things get interesting, because that's where the biggest fundamental change is. And I'm still 50-50 on it, because on the one hand, You know, I kind of like the Assassin's Creed games because I like just pressing a button and watching a really cool kill animation. Here, the gameplay, they tried to make it more attentive. You have to pay attention, and I like that. There's a challenge to it, and it's a lot like Zelda. Like, you lock onto a character, you square off, you can hold your shield, you have a heavy attack and a light attack, dodges, hops, and back and forth, and you also can do a parry, but you got to unlock that in the skill tree. And it's fine. I think it's because the movement speed is so fast, it feels kind of weird, and the animations are very cartoonish and not very realistic. It just feels different from everything else Assassin's Creed. It's very arcadey. You hit guys and numbers come out. It's not what I expected. It's not bad, but it's not quite great. It's like they almost, I appreciate that they overhauled it and changed it. It's like almost there. So those are two fundamental things which aren't perfect. Like I said, the stealth is still too simple. It's satisfying, but it's simple. And the combat is kind of weird, kind of 50-50. Yet I still really like this game. And I think I've said the same thing about the last few Assassin's Creed games. Because this is going to sound so corny, but I just love exploring these worlds. And what won me here with Origins, I did not expect it to be so ambitious and so big. The world map is absolutely huge. It's like a whole northern Africa covering all different types of environments. There's a lot of variety, and it's absolutely massive. I think what's really interesting is that there's all different cultures. There's so many things going on because you're in the desert, you're on the Nile River, you're looking at the pyramids, there's poor villages, there's dust storms, and then you can go into lush, beautiful Alexandria with rivers and cypress trees and Greco-Roman architecture and all these aristocrats and all these like Plato type people eating grapes and drinking wine and partying, and you're this weird fish out of water Egyptian riding a camel. The fact that the game captures all these different scopes, I've always been impressed with every Assassin's Creed game nailing the feel of one place, but here they do so much more, and I think it works to the game's favor with the whole fact that it's set up now way more like a traditional action RPG like Horizon Zero Dawn or The Witcher 3, stuff like that. While there are some little bugs and glitches here and there are some touches that I think show that they really went back and honed the formula. Number one, anytime you're riding a horse or a camel, you can hold a button and then automatically travel that road to a path, meaning you can bow and arrow dudes on your horse while you're still moving and staying on the path, which is a big deal. Also, if you're, for some reason, your boat sinks in the middle of a river and you're stranded, the game's like programmed for a random fisherman to boat up to you after a few seconds and be like, hey, are you stranded? Do you need help? And then you can just climb up and steal his boat. It feels a little much. It feels a little ridiculous. And just the fact that the boats move at the speed of light makes no sense. But it just makes for a more smooth playing experience sometimes. I don't know. And it works with the visuals too, because at any time you can call Senu, your eagle, and scout out the environment, essentially. And you can see the draw distances. You can look so far. You can see lush forests that way, deserts that way, pyramids that way, and it looks great, honestly. I'm playing on Xbox One S. That was the copy I got my hands on first, and the frame rate can be kind of crappy sometimes. Not single digits, but below 30, and it kind of makes the combat feel shitty sometimes, honestly. But the game still manages to look really damn good. It's colorful and it's dense. There's so much foliage, and I'm really impressed. If I sound like I'm kissing the game's ass, I'm sorry. But I just get excited about like well-crafted game worlds that feel lived in. There's systems in place. People go about their days and do things. Random shit happens. Animals attack humans. Different humans attack each other. All kinds of things go on. I appreciate stuff like that. But yeah, speaking of animals, I do want to mention I'm addicted to the hunting mechanics, like Black Flag especially, where I was really into that, crafting new stuff, hunting animals. Here, it's way more common. It happens more. The way it's structured in the menus, it's more of a persistent grind. You're always hunting. You're essentially always pushing for more gear, and it kind of pushes you to hunt more often, and I got addicted to that loop. I'm not going to lie. There's a lot of stuff here. I went into the game knowing that there was a loot system that is colored loot, like Destiny or other RPGs, where it's like, oh, rare, common, stuff like that. I get cynical about that. I'm like, oh great, this game has it just because that's hot right now. But thankfully, its application here doesn't feel forced. It feels like it makes sense, and I like getting new loot. I like getting a new and exciting sword and getting a new spear. And I will say that with the combat, one positive to the combat is weapon swapping once you unlock it is really, really nice, and it feels good. And I like the difference between weapons. A sword feels very different from a staff, and that feels very different from a long spear. And there's different scenarios and uses for each. And if you are looking for a combat challenge, like there's a lot of people to kill at all times. There's also gladiator matches, and there's essentially like Black Flag, those big legendary ships that were roaming around that were really hard. There's dudes out here in the environment that are essentially hunting you down, and they're really hard. They could wipe you out in like one hit, so that's something to work towards, and I like that. I think the world and the variety of the world is badass. I like the RPG structure. I really like the quests, the side quests, the story. The story, because there is Out of Adamus stuff, which I'm not going to spoil, but I like the way it's handled. It very clearly knows you want to get back in on the action, but it's not what I expected. It's a little different. It's a little goofy and a little hokey, but I kind of dig it. I'm not going to spoil it, but I just kind of like the way it's set up. I'm not going to lie. So it sounds weird that I'm like praising the game even though I pointed out a ton of flaws. That's how it goes sometimes. No game is perfect, and there's just a lot here that I really like. I like the loop. I like the grind. I'm not happy with the combat. I'm not totally happy with the stealth, but I just like the world. I like exploring. I like grinding. I like the characters. I like exploring Egypt, and that's it, man. It feeling so far-flung from the original Assassin's Creed or the Ezio trilogy, it's still satisfying, and I am having a ton of fun with it. I've already put like 30 hours into it, and I'm not going to stop. It's satisfying if you are a fan. I think the story and the way they set it up and where it goes and how it's like an origin story, it's really ambitious and very impressive, especially coupled with the game world and the variety in it. I'm a fan. I am a fan. Like I said, if you're a fan, you will probably maybe enjoy it. If you turned your back on the series after a couple games ago, I don't know, maybe tread lightly, but I'm into it. I don't care. I do want to know what you guys think, though. So let's talk in the comments. So if you are a fan and you have been playing, I want to know what you're thinking, like where the Brotherhood is and like set the setup with Cleopatra and stuff like that. I want to know what you're thinking. If you're not a fan, or maybe you've played a few games in the past and you fell off, I definitely want to know what you're thinking. Let's talk. This is a conversation. I'll be down in the comments talking to you guys as much as I can. I'm going to be on my honeymoon during some of this video. I'm not going to lie, but I am going to be jumping in when I can. But you can always hit me up on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram as well, at Jake Baldino. But as always, thank you guys for coming around here on this humble channel. You know, you can also find me making all the game ranks videos, but here, listening to me ramble, I appreciate it. And clicking the like button does me a favor, so thank you. But as always, I'm Jake Baldino. Thanks for watching. You can subscribe because video games.